This is Secret America with your hosts, Jack Danger and James Clary.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jack Danger along with James Clary, and there has been a lot going on this week, James. There's a lot to talk about. There was, the whole Diddy verdict. We got the big, beautiful bill. James, you were talking about earlier how it seemed like not as many people were celebrating July 4th this year. I mean, there's so many things going on, man, but we would be doing everybody a disservice if we did not talk about the big, beautiful bill first, because as well, even though Trump is kind of touting this thing as a win, and it's a win for him in terms of a president, because a president has to be able to pass some kind of big legislation in their first few months. It's just what they are. It's their crowning achievement, at the start of their presidency. But as far as the bill goes, James, what do you think about it? I mean, there's some things in there that do not look as they may seem that everybody first thought they were. What do you think?
Well, I mean, look, there are some good parts to it, like any piece of legislation. The problem is that we have this group of men and women called Congress, which represents the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Collectively, they're called Congress. And each one of those individuals has little pet projects and things that they want to get through. And it's primarily what you have to remember. I know we're going to talk about the provision about gambling, but it comes primarily from the people that give them money. So if you're a congressman from, say, Idaho or New York, whatever, and you've got certain constituency who gives you millions of dollars to your campaign, and they want to get a government contract on something, they're going to put this government contract in the bill. And that's just the way it is. I mean, look, you and I every week sit here and talk about the minutia of politics and the government. You can boil it down to one thing, Jack. It's money. And you can trace all of these issues to money and politics. I mean, I've actually floated an idea to my own congressman about how to get money out of politics, but I do have a solution. We can talk about it later if you want. I just don't think it'll ever pass because they're beholden to the money. That's what I think.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I do want to talk about that provision in just a second. But what I would like to say first about the bill is how shocking things are in terms of how different than I thought that they would be. I thought they would be, more permanent. I thought they would be more serious, and I thought they would have more of an effect on people. When you're talking about like the no tax on tips, right? Let me look at this. I think the no tax on tips has like some kind of a $25,000 cap or something like that. I believe it is, right? There's a $25,000 cap on the no tax on tips, right? There's I think a $12,500 cap on the overtime. There's even a $6,000 cap on the Social Security. But let me tell you, James, none of this happens during the year. This is all, you are still taxed during the year. This is all afterwards. Maybe, when you file your taxes. And not only that, James, these are all temporary. People don't need to tout this as, oh, yes, there's not going to be tax on tips, no more tax on overtime anymore. There's caps. And not only are there caps, but it is all temporary. As soon as Trump leaves office, that's it. They're gone. What do you think, James? I mean, tell me what you think about that.
I think it's horrible. I think they lied through their teeth to us. As a person who has literally been in the restaurant business since 1974, what does that make? 50 years, Jack.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
50 years I've worked in restaurants, owned restaurants, consulted, opening new restaurants. So, I mean, the tax on tips, the whole gratuities and tips thing has been a subject that's very near to my heart for a very long time. I mean, think of it like this: if you help a lady down the escalator at a department store and she hands you $5, does the government deserve to get $1 of that? I mean, it's total BS. They should not. Gratuity is there's no, and unless you pay an auto gratuity, and believe it or not, the IRS does distinguish between what's called an auto gratuity. If you go out with, say, a party of 8 or 10 to a restaurant and they automatically put a tip on there, then it becomes taxable. But, tips were never intended to be taxed. And the greedy members of Congress and the IRS, and I told you off air, maybe yesterday, the day before, it is the tax lawyers lobbying and the tax accountants. These are extremely powerful lobbying groups. Just think about it. Every accountant in America, their bread and butter happens around April 15th. It's like the fireworks stand, Jack. They make all their money in the week leading up to July 4th and the week after, or the Halloween costume store. They make all their money around October 31st. These accountants and lawyers make all their money around April 15th. And they are incredibly powerful and they're incredibly rich. So what do? They give billions to members of Congress to get their campaign. And that's why you're seeing this nonsense. That's why you'll never see the IRS change. One of these days, Jack, I will go over what the alternative minimum tax is that I mentioned to you offline. The thing that totally screwed me out of my retirement and everything else. It's the most unfair tax law in the world. Listeners can look it up, alternative minimum tax. I won't go into it here because we're talking about the big, beautiful bill. But yeah, it's a lobbying group. And once again, what did I say at the beginning? It's money, Jack.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And Free actually said, I don't get why they are bragging about limited taxes on tips, such a small accomplishment, and I was thinking the same thing. And they don't brag about it as it's limited. They say, hey, we got you no tax on tips. We got you no tax on Social Security. But really, it's not even no tax. It's a tax credit at the end of the year that you get that has, a relatively small cap. I mean, if you want the truth, it's a relatively small cap. But that's not even the thing that pissed me off the most. Let me tell you what pisses me off. I am a sports bettor, okay? I like to bet on sports. And, I bet on it, fairly frequently. So, my betting, goes pretty high if you go over the course of a year. So let me put it this way. The new anti-gambling law, as I like to call it, was snuck in there by the Senate. It was passed, by the House and then signed by Trump. And what it does now is, if you say you bet $100,000, right, over the course of a year, say you win $100,000 and you lose $100,000, that means you broke even, okay? You completely broke even. Well, you're only allowed to take 90% of those losses off of your winnings. So you didn't break even according to the government. According to the government, you made $10,000. You have to pay taxes on $10,000 because you can only put 90% of your losses as to the ratio of your winnings. So even though you broke even, you still got to pay taxes on 10 grand. What it is, it's a theft. Okay. This tax is not a tax. It is a theft. It's anti-American. It is un-American. And it is what we actually kicked Britain's ass for. This is the same thing that we beat the hell out of Britain for. And they are now imposing this shit on us, James. And that is really pissing me off because this is going to kill the legal gambling industry. And people say, oh, it only hurts professional gamblers. No, it doesn't just hurt professional gamblers. What if you win the lottery? Okay, what if you, even win a small scratch-off lottery? What if you win, some kind of a decent payout in a sports bet or in the casino? You have to pay. Say you even actually made money, James. Say you put $100,000. You bet $100,000. You lost $50,000. That means you made a $50,000 profit, right? But you can't even put up the $50,000 of losses. You can only put up like $35,000. So according to them, even though you made $50,000, you have to pay taxes on $65,000. So you are going to have to pay more taxes than you made. And if you broke even, or even if you lost money, you will still have to pay taxes on thousands of dollars as if you gained money, James. This is very, very concerning.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want me to talk for a minute about what I think's behind this and that research
Sure.
that I did. Yeah, so The senator behind this provision is a guy named Mike Crapo, which I think is the perfect name for this piece of shit. Mike Crapo from Idaho. So I looked up his FEC filings, which is an old trick that Mel taught me, the village crazy lady. That's how she got, so prominent on Twitter, by going through politicians' FEC filings. And besides WinRed, which was his biggest contributor, his next biggest contributor was a guy named Craig, and I'll butcher this name, but it looks like Dusage. And he's a prominent businessman in Chicago, but they own all kinds of gambling and mainly horse operations, raceways for horses. So the guy makes most of his money through gambling. Now, I was a little stunned, Jack, that said, so why? I don't understand. Why would a guy who owns gambling want to, have a provision that moves people away? I think it's because, like you said, look, you're a professional, Jack. I can never do what you do. I would lose my ass. You study these games. You spend a lot of time on it. You make very carefully placed bets, and your odds of winning are much greater than the average Joe. Like I'm going to bet on my Raiders this weekend because I love them,
A lot of people bet on just who they like. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which is the stupidest bet ever. I mean, I learned that in craps. I used to play the don't pass, which is against the pass line. But anyway, by adding this provision, it's going to discourage people like you, the professional bettor. So look, they may have less volume in the betting, but they're going to pay out less in winnings, the people that own the casinos and the racetracks, because they're going to edge out the professionals, and it's going to be dumbasses like me that don't know what I'm doing that plays bet. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that is why they are doing it, is because, yes, it's going to hurt some bettors, but see, it's gonna get the professional bettors out of there, is what it's gonna do. So now just the casual bettor who bets once in a while is gonna bet, and those are the ones that lose most of their money. And then they're gonna pay out a lot less, but they're gonna win basically the same amount because they're going to be paying out a lot less. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. And Mike Crapo, as you so eloquently call him, because that's actually how his last name is spelled, Crapo, which I find that hilarious, Senator Mike Crapo. I just want to say that since I now hate this man, I would like to I would just like to say a few things that are out there about him, because I told him that I was going to bring up, a lot of the secrets that are out there about him because of the bullshit that he put out there. So one of the things I would like to say is this man has been accused in 2008 of misuse of campaign funds. Senator Mike Crapo from Idaho, $250,000 loan into a get-rich-quick scheme, with his campaign manager allegedly invested $250,000 into Blueberry Guru, a venture tied to Gavin McCaleb without Crapo's knowledge, supposedly, though FBI documents suggest Crapo may have been aware and actually approved of the transaction. The investment tanked, but the loan was never repaid. And then he eventually self-reported it 5 years later, and the prosecutors declined charges. The next thing is an ethics complaint, campaign payments made to his wife. In 2018, watchdog group Campaign for Accountability filed an ethics complaint alleging Crapo's leadership PAC made undeclared payments to his wife, and that he failed to disclose it on his financial statements. And obviously the biggest thing, and the thing that everybody knows about, is his DUI arrest from 2012. And this is a big thing. Okay, this is a huge thing because this man is a Mormon who and if you know anything about Mormons, they are not allowed to drink alcohol. He claims that he did not drink alcohol, even though he got a DUI. He was arrested, and then he eventually claimed, I just had, a few shots of, whatever the hell it was. I don't know. But based on these things, I mean, he seems like a pretty awful person.
He was
whatever.
Just so you know, he was a .11 and the legal limit's .08. So
Exactly. He was definitely drunk. And see, the funny thing is, Mormons are not allowed to drink alcohol. So, you take that for what it is. This man has obviously no principles. He doesn't even care about the religion to which he belongs. And what I will say is, if you want to judge a man, you judge a man by what they have been caught for, because I can promise you, whatever they haven't been caught for is a lot worse, James.
Yeah, this guy's a sleazeball. Look, this is maybe a good segue to get into it, because get into Elon Musk and the American Party. I am so sick of the sleazeballs in the GOP, Jack. I mean, honestly,
I agree.
The Democrats I can stomach. They're freaking communists. I know that. At least most of them, and the ones that aren't are socialists, want to be communists. Seriously, I'd almost rather take them, because at least I know what they stand for. These guys in the Republican Party claim to be one thing and turn out to be something totally different. Before we get off this big, beautiful bill, the big, beautiful bill is completely full of pork and earmarks. And earmarks are what I was discussing before, where each member of Congress in the House and the Senate has a pet project. So they get added on and they just multiply and multiply. This is going to add $2.2 trillion to the deficit that's already over $32 trillion, Jack.
Did you hear about the entire... I'm sorry, did you hear about the entire price of this package?
No. Go ahead.
Elon Musk actually put out that over the course of just 2 years, it is going to add $5 trillion to our deficit over the course of 2 years.
Okay, so think about this. Think about when Trump first got elected, and think about Elon Musk and Doge. Dude, that was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in politics. Would you agree? Elon Musk going in, knocking down doors to these corrupt federal agencies. What happened to that, Jack? Did Congress put those cuts that Doge found into this law? No. They completely bypassed them. They completely ignored them, because Congress is complicit, and the White House, Donald Trump, excuse me for pounding the desk, Donald Trump just signed this fucking bill. And now, and I hope it doesn't get us censored, and now the Doge cuts, I mean, it's gone. It was, in my opinion, there's one of two things. That whole Doge, let's bring government accountability. Finally, one of the core tenets that people like you and me have been screaming for. The other one is justice, which we'll talk about before this episode is over. We always talk about it. One of the core tenets is government accountability. They literally threw that out the window with this bill, and I'm infuriated by that. I mean, I was so pumped. I feel like so it's one of two things. Either the whole thing was a total show from the beginning, or somebody got to Trump and the team and just said, look, you better go along, you better play along to get along. And, it's either blackmail or greed, which it always comes down to. I don't know which of those it is. Doesn't really matter. But the whole MAGA agenda has hit a major roadblock, in my opinion.
I completely agree, but what's interesting is the fact that I didn't think, and I've got to say one thing real quick about the America Party you were talking about. The Scientific Libertarian put a comment out just now that said, my suspicion is that Elon is going to be siphoning third-party votes, just like RFK Jr. did last election cycle, to prevent the inevitable libertarian movement. I like that, but I will say he is absolutely right. I mean, all that's going to do is siphon off votes, and it's going to cause a lot of problems, because what it's going to do is allow the Democrats to win from now on. I mean, the 2026 midterms, if the Democrats win, that's it. I mean, they're not. You think the Democrats are going to vote for Elon Musk and the America Party? No, they're going to stick with the Democrat Party. But I can tell you that a lot of the independents and half of the Republicans are going to vote for the Elon Musk America Party, James. Go ahead.
I agree, but I have one point to make. Somebody, I don't know, I saw something on Twitter, was kind of making the same point as you. And I said to him, this person, I just, it's a thought experiment. Has MAGA MAG, Make America Great Again. Has that movement ever been about a party? Has it ever been about a man? I don't believe so. I think it's a movement that's separate and independent of party, just like the Tea Party was. Now, the Tea Party, you can really, in recent history, trace this whole movement back to the Tea Party. The Tea Party people are the ones the most prominent MAGA. They were all members of the Tea Party. What happened to the Tea Party? They were co-opted by the GOP establishment. They were dangled big pots of money. Hey, come support our guys and we'll put you in a position of power. And that's exactly what happened. So, but the thing is, look, if I got two candidates on paper and one of them is a Republican MAGA and one of them is an American candidate, I don't know, Jack. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. There's a part of me that said, look, I'm going to vote for the best candidate. And if Elon Musk brings about some candidates who really will bring fiscal look, you know, the little tirade I just went on, how pissed I am about how Doge and government accountability went out the window. I think that's exactly how Elon feels. And I don't think he knows what to do. I mean, he has limited power as one of the world's richest men. He has some power, but he doesn't have the power that the MAGA movement has. So he's like, well, F it. I'm just going to start a third party, man. I think he's angry as hell. And I completely understand his anger.
But you know, the funny thing is, I was actually thinking the same thing. But what I will say is, even though MAGA is not about a specific party, and it's not even about a specific person, Trump just happens to be the leader of the MAGA movement at the moment. What I can tell you is, in order for MAGA principles to be imposed on America the way we need them to be, one of those two would have to win. America Party or GOP. And if they're against each other, it's always going to be the Democrats that win. This will kill the MAGA movement, if you ask me, because they are going to split the vote right down the middle, either independents or GOP or whatever. All Democrats are going to vote for Democrats. They're not going to vote for the Republican Party and Elon Musk and JD Vance. They're not, or JD Vance. They're not going to vote for the American Party and Elon Musk. So that is what worries me. And even if I said, okay, you know, I don't like what the GOP is doing, and it's getting hard to start, you know, trusting Trump the way I thought I could, you know, because of bills like this bill right here. That's, you know, basically just a big magic show. Okay, we're going to take taxes away from tips, Social Security, and overtime. But, you know, it's only going to be for this amount and only for 3 years. As soon as I leave, you know, that's it. It's going back to the way it was. But he doesn't say that. He says, oh, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. And actually, there is taxes. You just get a credit at the end of the year. But, I mean, you know, it's crazy. But I will say, I was starting to think, man, maybe Elon Musk is right. You know, maybe Elon Musk was right about the bill. Maybe he was right about everything. But there was something that stopped me right in my tracks, James. There was one thing that stopped me right in my tracks. I wish I could bring it up here. I was trying to share the damn screen on here so I could bring it up. Give me 1 second. I want to see if I can share it because this is important. Everybody needs to see this, but for some reason, I don't know what it is. It will not. Okay, let me try it now. Let's try it now. All right. Can you see my screen here? All right. Here's what we're going to do. I want to show you exactly what I was talking about here. All right. So look at this. Do you see this right here? This is an Elon Musk post from 2021 right here. Can everybody see this? This is an Elon Musk post right here from 2021. You see what it says here? It is high time there was a carbon tax. I want to show you something else. And this really shocked me right here. Right here. Elon Musk, the only action needed to solve climate change is a carbon tax. A carbon tax. Did you hear that? Did you see what that said, James? Elon Musk wants a carbon tax. He believes climate change is real, and the way to solve it is by giving the government more of your money, James. What's your reaction to that? What do you think of Elon Musk before I showed you that and right after? You're on mute, James.
I know. I was having trouble unmuting.
Okay.
You know, it really doesn't.
That to me is shocking.
I think that position is ridiculous, as you know. I mean, I've interviewed Tony Heller, who I consider to be the most knowledgeable exposer of the great climate hoax. You should follow him at Tony Heller, H-E-L-L-E-R on X, because he shows that all of this is nonsense, particularly historically. You know, he shows that in the 1700s, the frickin' Seine River in France dried up. People were dying in 130 degrees heat. But my point is, look, Elon owns Tesla. He almost has to be the look. I don't like that position, but it's kind of like Trump. I mean, I don't like every Trump position either. It doesn't freak me out as much as it does you. I'm just being honest.
I'm going to tell you why it freaks me out, because this man is constantly saying that climate change is a hoax, but I can see based on prior tweets what he really thinks. Okay, because
that was 4 years ago.
It may have been.
Elon was a Democrat at that point. He was a Democrat.
And you're right, but maybe he's always been that. See, people don't just change just like that. Oh, all of a sudden Donald Trump was almost assassinated, and now Elon Musk is a Donald Trump supporter and a Republican. People don't change just like that.
Look at RFK Jr., look at Tulsi Gabbard. There's a lot of people from the left, Jack, that have come over to our side.
That's very possible, but they came over to the side based on things that have happened, little at a time, things that have changed their perception. He was against Donald Trump. He was against it all until the assassination attempt. Then all of a sudden he seizes the opportunity. And this is, the carbon tax thing. That's what bothers me, okay? I don't even care if he thinks climate change is real. That just shows that he's a freaking idiot if he thinks climate change is real. What bothers me is he thinks, and there is no way that you can get the liberal out of your mind enough to not think about this, okay? He thinks that climate change can be solved by giving the government your money. James, has anything ever been solved by giving the government your money? Okay, you want to give the government your money to solve climate. Tell me how that happens and why he thinks that's a good idea, or is he just insane?
Yeah, I don't know, man. You and I have a little bit different opinion on it. I think it was 4 years ago. He was a hardcore Democrat. He started the most successful electric vehicle company in the world. If you buy electric vehicle, you're doing so. A primary motivator is the climate and the environment. I drive an electric car, even though it's been exposed now that the mining of those rare earth minerals and the lithium and the waste that stuff creates is worse than a gas powered car. So I don't know, man. I don't like it that he said that, but it was 4 years ago. Elon's a little nutty as it is. I think he's a super ADD. He's almost a savant, an autistic savant.
He definitely is. No, he definitely is. Right. But see,
you really think he believes right now that climate change is a man-made climate change is real?
Who says that now?
Do you believe that he thinks that anymore? He doesn't, does he? Or what? What does he say now?
I'll tell you exactly what he thinks, okay? If you want to look at what somebody really thinks, if you want to look at the future, people always say, if you want to know where you're going, you've got to know where you've been, okay? If you want to look to the future, you got to see what's happened in the past, because usually where you start is where you end up. And that's exactly where he started. So I think he's an opportunist. RFK, he does good things, but he seizes on the opportunity to do these good things. But I don't know about Elon Musk, okay? That to me, now RFK was always, he's never done anything to me that was really insane. But Elon Musk is a smart man. He's, like you said, he is a genius. But to think, first of all, that climate change is real, and second of all, that it can be solved by giving the government your money, to me, that's just something you don't come back from. That kind of thought process, I don't see how you can change. I don't see how you can pull that out of your mind to replace it with something common sense. I don't see that.
No, I get you, man. I totally get you. I really, if we can, let's move beyond that. There's so much in the news.
There is.
Yeah, I want to remind our listeners of something. It just seems like, and this has been going on. CNN came about, I don't know, in the 80s probably, because I remember coming home from college. When we first got cable, I was in college. I entered college in 78. I was at the University of Tulsa, and Tulsa was one of the early cable markets. So in 1980, we got cable and had MTV, and then CNN came online. It was the first 24-hour news network. People don't realize that. Bro, we watched the news at 5:30. Then we got a 30 minutes of local news at 10 p.m. That was it. And you got your newspaper in the morning. If something happened overnight in the world, you didn't know about it till late the next day. So my point is this: the 24-hour news cycle, things come, things go away. And the thing that just look, I said one of the main reasons we voted for Trump at the beginning for this and support MAGA is government accountability, right? Getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is the two-tier justice system. And Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi have done jack shit to rectify this situation. I mean, just to begin, January 6th. Where are the Epstein? Where are the documents? Where are the tens of thousands of hours of video, Pam, that you promised? Kash Patel promised, give us a week. We'll release. You know, Jack, that there's still 7,000 hours of J6 videos that haven't been released. And look, I know I bring this up every show, and I'm going to continue to bring it up every show because
you should.
Yes. My number one issue was always war. I'm anti-war. The second was probably the government accountability or in the two-tier justice system. They're tied for second. Those three things were the most important issues dear to my heart. And what I saw, what they did to Trump, you know, going in and all the indictments and the court cases and all that, I mean, it just infuriated me. And you brought something up the other day, Jack, and I want to get your spin on it. Mm-hmm. You said, isn't it amazing? And we've had this conversation before. Isn't it amazing how Trump was able to dodge every single bullet, including the one that he dodged hitting him in the face? He dodged it. It just nicked his ear. It is almost Houdini-like. Forget the assassination attempt. I'm talking the lawfare. He got out. Now, granted, those cases were weak, but look, we know the whole Justice Department was run by the other side. How did he escape all that? So I'm just wondering if all of this is theater, if it's all kabuki theater, Jack, the whole thing, including Donald Trump. I mean, there's a look, I would say 10% that way, 90% no, you're crazy. I'm 50-50 now, dude. I'm totally on the fence as to whether Trump is deep state and it's all bullshit. What do you think?
You know, I am actually going to read part of the text that I sent you offline real quick. I want people to think about this. And I'm playing devil's advocate here for everybody. At the moment, I am still a Trump supporter. But this is just to get everybody listening to think about things in a different way. We want you to look at things in a different light. I'm not saying that this is necessarily the truth, what I'm about to read. I just want you to think about it in a different way. So here is a text that I sent to James actually earlier this week, I believe it was, wasn't it, James? It might have been yesterday, the day before, whenever that big, beautiful bill provision came out.
We've been talking all week, so it's in the last couple of days. If people don't know, Jack and I do talk offline.
Yes, we do. We do tend to talk once in a while. So I put all right. So I put if you look back, I'm beginning to think that Trump was the deep state plant all along. If you look back on everything that's quote happened to him, what actually happened to him? He got charges, sure, but nothing happened and his poll numbers went up. There was an assassination attempt, sure, but he was supposedly barely grazed and his poll numbers went up. Something is fishy here. No, I don't prefer Kamala, but I can't trust Trump anymore either. I want everybody to look back on the events of the last few years as if you knew he was planted by the deep state. I want you to think about how the deep state, like maybe it just came out that he's a deep state plan. You know it for sure now. I want you to look back as if you knew he was planted by the deep state to make the population happy and believe that there could be justice. Has there been justice in his 4 years? In his last 4 years? Has there been justice now? Has he even talked about justice anymore? I mean, maybe this was all to placate the rednecks, the MAGAs, all to fool them into thinking they had a choice, all to stop them from coming after the government, James.
Yeah, Liz in the comments said, "Where are the rest?" And then Freedom Uncut says, "What about the hundreds of billions stolen from the COVID program?" Yes, I had that on my list. COVID is the greatest crime perpetrated on humanity in the last 200 years. Have you heard one word about it? Look, I did a deep dive on chat the other day. I use AI because it's really, for me, it's a faster search engine than using Google. That's all it is. But it tends to give you the mainstream establishment paradigm, but you can drill down by calling it. I mean, I call out chat all the time, but I did a deep dive on COVID. It was confirmed to me, which we all know this. The Department of Defense, Jack, paid to create a virus that was harmless to humans. They paid to create the research that would cause would cause millions of deaths from this virus. Our own army, the Department of Defense, paid for this. And not only did they pay for it, they collaborated with our supposed number one enemy, the Chinese Communist Party. Dude, if I told you this, you would say you're crazy. That didn't happen. No, it did happen through the NIH, through NIAID, through Peter Daszak and Echo Health Alliance. The funds were sent. Remember, Anthony Fauci's 3/4 of his salary was from where? The freaking Pentagon. He got his money from there. Why? Because legislators and their infinite wisdom made it illegal to do gain of function research in the United States. They saw how dangerous this was. Well, you think the Army generals and the big brats in the Pentagon are going to say, "Oh, we'll just stop our bioweapons research"? No, they just moved it to other places. The main two countries they moved it to? China and Ukraine. Imagine that. There were 30 bioweapon labs in Ukraine. Putin even warned us about it. You don't hear anything about that in the news. That's why we do this show, Jack, because we talk about things that aren't in the news. So the Pentagon created the virus that killed millions of Americans, and not one damn person's been held accountable. And am I pissed about it? Hell yes.
I mean, you're right. No one seems to be held accountable for anything. And that's actually a good segue into something I wanted to talk about, James. The Diddy trial, the Diddy charges. And what I would like to say, for anybody that does not know, Diddy was found not guilty of the more serious charges of sex trafficking and whatever the hell the other charge was, rape or what. I don't even remember what the hell it was. It doesn't even matter. He was found not guilty of those. The only thing he was found guilty of was
the RICO charge too.
That's right, RICO and the sex trafficking. The only thing he was found guilty of was transportation for prostitution, some BS like that. Which even though they held him without bail, he might even end up getting just time served or something. But I'm going to tell you why he was found not guilty, James. And I'm sure you probably already know this at this point. But okay, so James Comey is a deep state. He was one of the biggest deep state, actors that we have. Okay, who do they send as an attorney, a district attorney for the Southern District of New York, that not only would have gotten Epstein off had he not killed himself, but also got Ghislaine Maxwell, the lowest sentence I've ever seen, and I believe she's actually going to be getting out anyway. And then also there was somebody else that was found not guilty. I can't remember who the hell it was that she did, but now she did the Diddy trial. Enter James Comey's daughter, whatever the hell her name is, Marie Comey, or it doesn't even matter. It's his daughter, one of the biggest deep state actors there is, that got P. Diddy off by half-assing the prosecution, dropping a lot of the charges right before the verdict. Most of the charges were dropped before the verdict, during the trial. Why? Because those were the charges he would have been found guilty on. They didn't have proof for any of the other shit. So what are they going to do? Drop the charges that he will be found guilty on, and then put in some of the charges. He's got to be found guilty on something. Otherwise, people are going to ask for blood. So he was found guilty on something. He might get time served or maybe a year or something, but it's nothing that's going to matter and nothing that's going to ruin his life. Because it's not sex trafficking, it's not, child molestation, it's not any of that. But why? Because they got things from him. Not only does he have blackmail information like Epstein did, just like Ghislaine Maxwell did, but they got things from him that they can use against others. It is why you will never see the FBI arrest any Epstein clientele. they'll lose all their leverage. You know, it's funny because I actually put a post out that said if this anti-gambling law is not repealed by the second reconciliation, which the Congress is supposed to be doing in the fall, they're going to do another reconciliation. If this is not repealed by then, I am going to go scorched earth on every U.S. government official there is. Every single day, I am going to put out a post with every rumor and every secret that I can think about of every single person. It'll be a different person every freaking day. That's what I'm going to do. Somebody actually replied, though, and said, why don't you already do that? And I said, I don't do it for the same reason the FBI doesn't arrest, Epstein clientele. Because if I do that, I lose all my leverage. Why the hell would they repeal anything? Why would my post even matter if I had already put out everything I know? And that's basically the gist of it, James. He's going to be a free man. Everybody, did you see the people celebrating outside the courthouse? They were pouring baby oil on themselves. Outside the courthouse on live television, they were squirting baby oil on each other because the man had like 500 bottles of baby oil in his house. But no, there was no, minor exploitation or sex trafficking happening. Just transportation for prostitution, James. That's it.
Yeah, it's so disgusting. It just speaks to the degeneracy of our current society and culture. I mean, look at those videos of these young ladies in short shorts getting up on cars and twerking in front of crowds of hundreds of men with their ass in the air, shaking. I mean, I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy. I am old. I'm 65, by God, just about 2 weeks ago. But
but that's horrible,
look,
man. That's horrible.
I was in the era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the 60s, and I had my share of all of it, believe me, but there's just something about it's so in your face. And the acts, the actual things that Diddy did were so disgusting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what he made these women, it was so degrading to women. I don't understand in this age of third wave feminism. Well, I think that's it. I mean, we could do a deep dive. Feminism says, oh, it's okay for a woman to promote her sexuality, which women are free to choose to do whatever they want. But when women debase themselves, like OnlyFans, women online debase themselves, that doesn't help the woman, and it doesn't help society. Our society is sick, Jack, and we're watching the culture crumble all around us. It's sad. The Diddy trial I don't think anyone was surprised. Were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, and I wanted to ask you something, James. This is actually interesting right here. This comment by Liz. Diddy got away with it like OJ got away with murder. I wanted to ask you, not only did Marie Comey, James Comey's daughter, have something to do with this, but do you think that this was a racial thing because of the way America is right now with the black privilege? Do you think this was a racial thing?
Of course it was a racial thing. Of course it was. I mean, that was certainly part of it. There's this whole, the base of critical race theory is that there are two classes of people. It's not black or white. It's victim versus oppressor. And the victims happen to be people of color and the oppressors are the white man. So, yeah, I mean, this really ramped up when Obama took office. We know that. We can trace it back to 2008. Many have talked about how in the 90s and early 2000s, really race relations were pretty damn good in the United States. And it wasn't until this Marxist dogma was pushed by the likes of Barack Obama and all these Harvard-educated academicians and every university talking about victor and oppressed. I mean, I've talked about Kindle Reacts on YouTube, hundreds of videos of people getting arrested, and they're like, you can't arrest me. I'm a black queen. And of course there's white dirtbags too. I don't want to make that about race, but there is this thing in society, and a lot of it did start with OJ. Everyone knew OJ was guilty, except the jurors knew he was guilty. But they felt like this, Jack. They felt, the black man has been kicked around for so long, and they were right. I mean, slavery, then Jim Crow, then the eras of segregation. Yeah, it was horrible how
it might be true, but that's not justice.
No, but it's vengeance. That's what it is. This is and it's still there. White people, they want to kick a certain segment. I'm not going to say all blacks. It's BS. I think it's a minority, honestly. They want to kick white people in the face. There's a segment of that culture. It starts with the gangster rap. It's the gang culture. It's the professional sports culture. It's the shorts around your knees culture. It's the tennis shoes culture. It's like the music. Listen to the music. It's disgusting. And I have plenty of black friends that don't do that. They don't believe that. They don't see me as their enemy. We're just coworkers or friends. But yeah, a lot of this trial had to do with the race. And sorry for the long-winded response.
No, that's funny because as you were talking about, the rap music and the pants around the knees thing, I had a flashback back to the 90s. I mean, that is all you ever saw in the 1990s, by the way, which was the last great decade. Once the 2000s rolled around, the country's just been, the whole world's just been shit since then. But I do want to also say now that I'd like to say, even though here on Secret America, we go on both sides. We criticize and we praise Trump. We criticize and we praise the left, even though there's not a lot to praise about the left. So you don't hear a lot of praise about them. But I am going to praise the left right now. Senator John Fetterman has been has ever since he come out of that stroke that he has been common sense Democrat. I mean, it has been shocking. He just said that he actually just criticized the Democrats for lacking pride in America. Senator John Fetterman just did that. I wish he would come over to the GOP side, or hell, he can stay on the Democrat side and just vote with the GOP, but they'd never allow him to do that. So he should come over to the GOP. He has become a common sense person since he came out of that stroke. So that's a little something positive. And let me give you a couple more, just fun, positive things. One, the UFC has confirmed that it will hold a championship fight on the grounds of the White House, James, in summer 2026. There is going to be a UFC fight on the grounds of the White House. And I just got a comment that says Liz says she still doesn't trust John Fetterman. And don't get me wrong, I still don't trust John Fetterman. I'm just saying, since he came out of the stroke, he has been a different man with a little more common sense. And the last positive thing I'd like to say, James, is there was something good that came out of the big, beautiful bill. And it's an incentive to have children, but it's also an incentive to give your children to be, your children to possibly have a success in life. It gives them a little head start, especially if you're poor. In the big, beautiful bill, every U.S. child will receive a $1,000 S&P 500 starter account at birth. As soon as the child is born, they will get a $1,000 S&P 500 starter account, which, matures as the S&P goes up. And, by the time you're 18, that could be worth, $4 or $5 grand. Or if you continue to put money in it, that could be worth a lot of money. So if done correctly, especially if it's to where they can't touch it till they're 18, but they can add money to it, that I think is also a positive thing that came out of the big, beautiful bill. What do you think about those things, James?
I mean, I like that. And the tax cuts, I like that. I tell you what I don't like. Why is the Pentagon getting $1 trillion? The last budget for the military was $860 billion. They just added $140 billion. $1 trillion. We can't conceive of that number. It's so large. And I understand that.
That's why nobody cares.
Yeah.
They don't realize the amount of money that is.
Yeah. And I know that Trump wants to rebuild the military and make it better. The problem is what needed to happen. They should have cut it to $700 billion and made the necessary cuts. It was my rant at the beginning. The whole Doge thing just went away. It's the same old crap. The military industrial complex wins again. And I don't want to leave the show without talking a little bit about foreign affairs, because it is something that we try and keep a close eye on. And a lot of people don't know this, but in Gaza, all of the infrastructure has been destroyed. All of the supply chains have been destroyed. There's no food, Jack. There's no water. Who controls the food in Gaza? The IDF and the Israelis do. Every day, Palestinian people, I hate that term, but the people that have lived in that country for a long time, that area, line up for food. And every day, at least a dozen of them, and sometimes as many as 115 of them are killed. And every day, I'm talking every day. Look, at the thing is, the U.S. media doesn't report on this at all. I want to give Scott Horton a big shout out. He did an interview with Tucker.
Who's that?
Blew my mind. I mean, this guy is one of the most educated people on all of the foreign issues, particularly in the Middle East. He totally went back to the both Bushes, the Clintons, Obama, and how the whole Iran thing came out. I mean, we have been on the same side as the Ayatollah for more of the time that he's been in power. Then we switched sides. You know, we were against Al-Qaeda because they attacked us on 9/11. Then we supported Al-Qaeda in Syria. I mean, our foreign policy is a joke, and it shifts with the winds, and it's the winds of money. I mean, go to a website called antiwar.com. It's unbelievable. Did you know the U.S. is right now bombing people in Somalia, that we have troops in Sudan? We've had troops in Sudan for 15, 20 years. How many of our listeners knew we had active troops fighting in Sudan? How many people knew we were in the middle of bombing Somalia right now? Remember, all goes back. Yeah, thank you, Freedom Uncut, antiwar.com. It's a great website. It all goes back to the Wesley Clark memo, the 7 countries in 5 years. And Iran was the last on the list. Sudan has seen regime change. Somalia is in turmoil. Libya, Lebanon, Afghanistan, all of the countries that were on that list. And by the way, something that's come out very recently, Jack, that was Israel's list. It wasn't the Pentagon's. It wasn't the U.S. list. That list was given to Pentagon officials by the Israeli officials. We, the United States, has been fighting on the behalf of a foreign power, Israel, for decades. It's bullshit, and it needs to stop.
Well, that has a lot to do with AIPAC, because they basically get all the Congress members elected, which is, pretty unbelievable. There's actually a viral video going around where someone went through the halls of Congress and they looked at every, has the nameplate outside the door. There were almost every single person had a sign underneath their nameplate that says, "I stand with Israel. We stand with Israel." I mean, in the halls of Congress, there's 400 and something members of the House and 50 something members of the Senate or whatever it goes. And, so I don't know, 400 and something total, maybe almost 500 people. And I would say 95% of them have "I stand with Israel" signs on their door underneath their nameplates in the halls of Congress. And I will say that I don't give a damn. I'm going to be real here. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, James. I don't care about any other country. I don't care about Israel. I don't care about Palestine. I don't care about Iran. I don't care about Mexico or Canada. I just don't care about other countries. Okay, I'm an American, and America should come first. That's the whole point of the MAGA movement. That's the whole point of the America First movement. But that's not what happens. It seems like Israel does come first, but it's weird because it's almost as if I always thought, James, that America was the superpower. Israel was the one that did what we told it to do. But when that changed? When I realized that it's Israel that actually tells us what to do? That is when I heard Donald Trump say, I told them on Monday not to bomb Iran. And then they went and bombed Iran anyway. That is when I found out for sure that it's Israel that actually runs things, not the United States of America. So that was very shocking for me. It was a jolt.
Yeah, and it's look, they try every trick in the book. It's just like you and I were talking about the minority and the black community that have this stupid CRT mentality. They're gonna call us racist for saying the same thing. Will be called anti-Semites. I just finished the 5th season, the latest season of The Chosen. I don't know if you've seen that show, Jack, but if you haven't, really highly encourage everyone. It's now blown up. It's had like 10 billion views.
What's it about?
Well, it's about the life of Christ and how he started his ministry. And the end of the 5th season is right when he gets arrested by the temple guards, when they're going to take him in to be crucified. So next season will be about their crucifixion and the rising. But it goes so deep into Jewish culture back then. And the Jewish people and Christians, I think, do share a bond. The Torah and the Old Testament are one and the same, and we share that bond in the Abrahamic religions. But the Jewish leadership, even back then, when Christ overturned the money tables and he called the Pharisees out for being hypocrites and corrupt, it's the same thing today. The Israeli leadership is corrupt, and so many of them wield power in the United States. I mean, you look at the people, the term neocon means new conservative. Most people don't realize the neocons were all Trotskyites, and 90% of them were Jews, because Trotsky wasn't very popular in America, but Trotsky was popular among the Jewish. The whole Bolshevik movement in the Soviet Union would have never happened without the support of a large segment of Jewish people. So my point is, the Israeli leadership, I think they've gone off the rail. I think they're nuts. I think we need to disassociate. But like you said, every member of Congress, I stand, even church leaders. This is what really ticks me off. You go to Sunday school, you go to church here in the States, and they scold you if you question anything about Israel. Meanwhile, did you know Christians are getting executed by the hundreds every day in Syria right now? Did you know the population of Syrian Christians went from 3 million, it's now less than 400,000? Those people have been exterminated. There's a Holocaust going on right now of Christians in the Middle East, and no one, including the pastors in these fine churches in America, is talking about it. It pisses me off.
I completely agree. It seems like there's so many things that are kept under the table, secrets, and that's kind of what we do here, is try to get the secrets out for everybody, to know, so they can be informed and know what's actually going on. And that's our job here on Secret America. But before we go, we don't have to go at one. We can go a little over, whatever we want to do. Really, it's our show, so we can do whatever we want to do. I want to point out, James, another reason why I'm becoming very skeptical of the Trump administration. Now, I'm still a Trump supporter, but I'm on the edge, man, and I'm going to tell you why. President Trump announced again, now he flip-flopped on this once, and now he's announcing it again, that he is working on legislation to protect longtime farm and hospitality workers who get thrown out viciously, presumably referring to immigration raids. Listen to this. He said, radical right people, who I happen to like, may not be quite as happy, but they'll understand. Radical right is what he just said. Those were his exact words. Trump says the agriculture secretary, Brooke Rollins, who must have some kind of Ouija board, somehow she's controlling his mind, is the one who brought this issue up. Let the farmers be responsible. His full comments were, we're working on legislation right now where farmers, look, they know better. They work with them for years. You had cases where, not here, but just even over the years, where people have worked for a farm for 14, 15 years, and they get thrown out pretty viciously. We can't do that. That's what he said. And he said, I think that's going to make a lot of people happy. Now, serious radical right people, they may not be quite as happy, but they'll understand, won't they? Don't you think so? Those were his words, and that angered me also. But let me tell you the problem here, James. If you amnesty people, right? If you amnesty anybody, what's to say that all the illegals won't go join a farm or a hospital or a restaurant so they can't be thrown out? If you amnesty anybody, I mean, you're going to have to amnesty others. Where do you draw the line? Oh, it's going to be farm workers. No, it's going to be, hotel workers. No, it's going to be restaurant workers. Where do you draw the line? Okay. And not only that, but you want to amnesty people that have been here 15, 20 years. Why? I think those people should be deported first. They've been here all this time, had all this time to, become legal, but instead they said, F America's rules. I'm not going to be legal. I don't give a damn what I'm supposed to do. I've been here 15, 20 years and I haven't been legal. Screw you. They should be the ones that are deported first. Why in the hell are we amnestying everybody? This is not what I voted for, James. I voted for the deportation of every single illegal immigrant, James. Every single one of them. I don't care about the sob story. You've had 20, 30 years to become legal. You chose not to. You chose not to. It was a conscious choice, James. You tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, let's be honest. I think the biggest industry that's left off that list is construction. Look, I've been consulting with a restaurant that's in the middle of a major remodel right now, Jack, and they had to do it over the 4th because that was one day they were closed. So they tried to squeeze in, a complete renovation, new floors, new tiles, new ceiling, paint, everything. They had to squeeze it in 5 days. Guess what? This little project was run by 2 white guys and 15 Mexicans who did.
Oh, I guarantee it.
And the construction, and it started out, I remember masonry. I've talked about this before, that the bricklayer told me, he said, look, my industry's been overtaken by Hispanics because they'll work for $5 an hour less and they're good, because in Mexico, a lot of people build their own houses. They're brought up around power tools. They know what they're doing and they work hard. I'm from the restaurant business. I used to say, give me 10 Mexicans and I can open a successful kitchen anywhere in the United States because they work twice as hard. If one of them gets deported, Jack, do you think they just don't show up the next day? No, their cousin shows up. You don't even have to call. Just some other guy you've never seen before said, yeah, I'm here to work for Pablo. And I'm not making that up. That's the truth. So, but it sounds like I'm defending it. I'm not. I think they should try and deport first, because look, if you look at the numbers, they're never going to deport. If they deport the 20 million that entered under the Biden years in the last 4 years, those people should go first. And there's a hell of a lot of them that aren't Mexican. There's Chinese, man. There's Afghanis.
Oh yeah, they've been deporting the Iranians and all that.
Iranians, exactly. Guatemalans, Hondurans. They need to be reported, and still we should be focusing on the criminals. And Freedom Uncut had a good idea or a good line that the government's so incompetent they can only catch the grandmas who show up to work. He's got a point, But let me say this one more time. I have done hours and hours of content on this issue. There's one single thing that would stop this in its track. And you haven't heard it mentioned once, which tells you again that it's all a show. It's all bullshit. It's all deep state. And that is if they made E-Verify a law. E-Verify is a system that's already set up, and many companies use it, where anybody that applies for a job in the United States, that employer using E-Verify calls a number, gives the Social Security number, and you get a green check mark or a big red X. No, that's a good card or a bad card. And look, all the people here illegally and working illegally are using black market Social Security numbers. I've talked about this ad infinitum. Look up Social Security clarification or James Clary. You'll find long, lengthy contents on this very issue, yet no one talks about it. The I-9 form, which came about under Reagan in 1986, IRCA, the Immigration Reform Act, required an I-9 form. That's why they ask you for a driver's license and a Social Security card when you get a job. It's a requirement. It's supposed to be to prove citizenship. The way they got around it was by buying black market Social Security cards on the border. There's over 40 million people. There's an estimated $1.8 trillion in Social Security funds that are out there in the ether somewhere. Since the number was a bad number, it didn't go to anybody. Where's that money? That's why you don't hear him talk about it, Jack. I'm going to be like Joe Biden and whisper. They don't talk about it because it's created this huge pot of money. These illegal workers are taxed. The FICA tax was the Social Security on their labor. That money goes into a pot that then Congress can do with whatever they want. Nobody ever mentions it because it's the biggest, next to COVID and 9/11. It's probably the third biggest conspiracy out there, but you've never heard of this one.
No, you're right. That is definitely something big. And James, before we go, there's a couple more things I want to talk about real quick, and this is very important right here, okay? Because this mirrors what happened with Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. You remember when their chef mysteriously died paddleboarding in the middle of the night by himself, right? Just somehow drowned, mysteriously, and they never investigated it, right? Well, France's president, Macron, you know who I'm talking about, the French president? Well, apparently his wife, Brigitte Macron, is transgender, but he does not want anybody to know that. And apparently the surgeon who exposed her as being transgender in her transgender past was just found dead after falling out of a building. And it mirrors what happened with Barack and Michelle Obama and their chef. So Dr. Francois Fabre, a 58-year-old surgeon who confirmed to investigators that Brigitte Macron underwent gender-affirming surgery in the American hospital in Paris, was found dead on June 29th after what authorities described as a, quote, terrible fall from his fourth floor window. And now they're saying he committed suicide. But the funny thing is, he happened to commit suicide right before he was about to go on a major interview and tell all. Right before. Kind of mirrors the whole Barack Obama, the chef must have found out about something, Michelle, that they didn't want him to find out about. So this kind of confirms to me that his wife is transgender, just like Michelle Obama, and both people that found out about it knew about it and were going to tell about it, because apparently the chef was writing a book about it, and this guy was going to go on an interview about it, and they're both dead right before those things happen, James.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind about Brigitte Macron being transgender. I think you've heard of a person named Candace Owens. Candace has reported extensively, and she really was reporting on the work. And I feel bad, I don't have the guy's name pulled up, but there's a French reporter, journalist, who just did a deep dive into this, and he hooked up with Kansas. Well, hooked up's the wrong word. He and Kansas got together, and she did several podcasts about it. Now, to get this is crazy. Candace just revealed this about a week ago on her show. First of all, Kansas had a message that someone from the White House wanted to speak to her. So she gets this call from someone pretty damn high up. She didn't name him, but they said, the president would like you to stop talking about Brigitte Macron being transgender. Candace is like, what? And I don't want to make this a long story. So long story short, this thing went on for a while, back and forth between the White House and Kansas. Finally, Kansas gets a call, and the location's Florida. Guess who was on the line? Donald J. Trump. The president called Candace Owens and said, Candace, and I can't do a Trump, so I won't even try, but Candace, I'd like you to stop, if you would, stop talking about Brigitte Macron being transgender. And Candace like, why? Well, Emmanuel, when I met him, he's really a good guy, but he's real important to the Ukraine and Russia peace process. And he asked me, he pulled me aside personally and asked if I knew you, and that if I did, would I ask you to stop covering this story because it's causing him embarrassment. Get this, the president of France asked the president of the United States to call a podcaster to stop talking about this guy's wife. This is the craziest story ever. This really happened. And Kansas, she agreed because it had to do with the peace in Ukraine. And she's like, I'm not going to have the blood of soldiers on my hands. If it really means peace can go forward, I'll stop talking about it for a while. But of course, no peace ever came about. And she was finally able to reveal this. Happened about 6 months ago. Candace she's gotten several cease and desist letters from the palace in France to stop talking about it, but they haven't done any legal action because nothing she said is untrue. And yes, the surgeon you talked about, that surgeon was famous worldwide for feminizing men, for making men look like women. And it was not just cutting off the genitals. It was about redefining their facial
reconstruction,
and raising their breasts up and all these things. This search, and they were best friends with the Macrons. Go watch Candace's podcast if you have any doubt. I'm just going to tell you, there is zero doubt. Brigitte Macron is a man. And I believe the exact same thing about Michelle Obama. She's a man. Go look at the pictures of Barack Obama's boyfriend. His name was Michael. Now you go look at the picture of Barack's children, and the head of the Barack Obama Foundation, I can't remember their name, Jack, you probably might have it. They're the real parents of Barack.
Yes, actually, I wanted to pull up a picture of that if I can. Yeah. Give me 1 second. I want everybody to see this because the picture actually proves that it's their parents. I got to try to find it though. Actually, yeah. Hang on 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Go ahead. Actually, you know what? No, here it is right here. I want everybody to see this. Okay. This is the Obama family's actual, look at that right there. You see the daughter right here and the father? You see their faces?
They look exactly the same.
Look at the mom and the other daughter. Look at that. Look at the mouth and the mouth here. The eyes, the nose. Look at that. They look like they could be twins. That is the Obama children. The mom and the daughter look exactly the same. That right there. The daughter and the father look exactly the same. There's no way you can tell me they're not the kids.
Yeah, look at the head shape of the father and the older daughter. They have, kind of tall, skinny. I mean, they're exactly.
And there's no pictures of Michelle Obama pregnant. She's supposedly been pregnant twice. What mother does not have pictures of her pregnant? Twice.
Yeah, or of her in the hospital with the newborn. There's not even that.
And then the chef mysteriously dies as he's writing his book. And then Candace Owens talks about the whole transgender Macron. And then the surgeon who did the surgeries mysteriously dies right before the interview. So for some reason, even though he's super famous and rich, he wanted to just jump out of his fourth story window. He wanted to see if he could fly, and he found out that he couldn't. So I think that was the reason.
About the Trump phone call to Candace too, and Freedom Uncut brought up that Trump did offer her, say, Candace, if you do this for me, I'll give you an exclusive interview. But it was also, Trump said this to Candace. He said, well, Candace, I've been very close to her and had dinner with her, and she looks like a woman to me. Trump said that to Candace. He was kind of like, really? You think she's a man? And Candace said, have you, Mr. President, I love you, I support you, but have you watched my in-depth podcast about, because Candace goes in-depth, and even more this French journalist, and I really wish I'd give him credit. The guy's amazing. And yeah, I mean, he proved beyond a doubt, he's traced the family lineage. There's no pictures of Brigitte Macron as a child. There is, however, pictures of a boy who looks exactly like Brigitte. And then that boy, Brigitte, comes around in her 20s. That boy is gone. And they've asked the family, what happened to him? No answer. Yeah, it's obvious.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's the same actually if you look at Adam Schiff's wife. Have you ever seen Adam Schiff's wife? If you do a little search there, and then if you also do a search for, what was his name? Chuck Schumer, I believe it's his wife too.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer's wife. Yep.
Yeah, if you do a little search for these two women, they look exactly like men, and you wonder why transgenderism has been pushed so hard. And let me tell you, people that don't think that a lot of these Congress members are into Satanism and satanic things and the occult, why do you think that they're all have transgender wives? I mean, if you look at all of them, almost all of them have Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama. Yeah, they have transgender wives.
What do those three men have in common besides their party? Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, they're very effeminate men. They're gay, Jack. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it as I see it. They're gay men who married a trans woman as a beard. Everyone knows what the term beard means. It's a cover. Look, I have one of my best friends was a gay guy, and I knew he's gay. He didn't tell me for a long time, but he was married. He had 2 children. They were his kids, biological. But he was gay, and he finally left his wife, and he and I discussed it. He's like, I wanted to be seen as, this healthy red-blooded American. That's why I married Katie, and that's why we had kids. And I totally understood that. But the fact is, when you're president of the United States or the leader of the Senate or, head of very important committees on the House, you can't lie about stuff like that. Just be open about it. I think it'd be great. Barack Obama could say, you know what? My wife was the first trans woman to be the first lady or first man, whatever you want to call it. Just be honest. It's the whole deceit thing that I don't like.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's, and they push it, out like that, where they try to make it to where they can get sympathy. I always thought that they were doing all this to push it to where they can get sympathy for the transgenders, so that way Michelle Obama could run for president. But you know what's funny to me? And I brought this up before. You've seen Michelle Obama's podcast, right, with her brother? Have you seen how, could you imagine being their parents? Michelle Obama is extremely masculine, right? But the brother could not be more effeminate. It looks like he's wearing lipstick. He acts like a woman.
He is wearing lipstick.
And he acts like a woman. So these parents of these people had a son that turned into a daughter and a daughter that turned into a son. That's got to be mind-boggling. And you can see it on their podcast. I think it's called the Transgender 2 or something. I forget what it's called. But these two are exact opposites of each other, and they have the mental illness where they end up being exact opposites of what they're supposed to be. It is shocking.
Yeah, we talked about CRT, right, which is critical race theory, and we've talked about this all can be traced back to the blanket paradigm called critical theory. Within critical theory, there's something called queer theory, and Jack, it's the very same thing that we've touched on too. It promotes degeneracy in society, and it promotes homosexual acts to normalize them, with the ultimate goal of normalizing the attraction between young children and men. That's the goal, and to make transgenderism just a regular old part of modern society. And look, we can say it we don't care what you do in your bedroom. We are the ultimate libertarians. Do whatever the hell you want. Get funky, brother. Do whatever you want. But when you start out and out helping to destroy the society, when you do a gay parade and you have men dressed in skimpy leather whipping each other and acting like a dog, and when you have Michelle Obama's brother wearing lipstick and eyeliner with his stupid shaved bald head and her penis showing, I'm sorry, it's where I'm going to draw the line. It's just, it's insanity, Jack.
It absolutely is. And I'm glad you brought up the gay parade thing that these people seem to be having, because there's something that I saw that absolutely shocked me. Okay. And I'm going to pull it up here. I just got to find it real quick. It's on a post that I put out, and it's something that I don't know how they allow it to be legal. Okay. You've actually got adult males. And to me, the only reason they're doing this is because they're pedophiles that want to be naked in front of children. They want to show their penises in front of children. And if I could find this thing here, I would show it. I know it's somewhere on here, but it could be, a little further down. But what it is it's a bunch of males supposedly in a pride parade. Why you need a pride parade? Because, why would you celebrate the fact of a man, having, screwing another man in the ass? How is that something to celebrate? I understand that it's something, that you do, that it might be, your sexual preference. But when the hell did we get to a place where you have a whole month where you get to celebrate a man fucking another man in the ass? How is that a celebration type thing, James? That's what I don't
Pride,
understand.
pride, one of the 7 deadly sins. I mean, the whole idea of Pride Month itself is a spit in the face of what Christians believe and a spit in the face of what the followers of Christ believe. You know, pride is a sin. So we give a whole month to it. I mean, literally, they're saying we don't care about Judeo-Christian principles. Not only do we not care, we're going to put it in your face that you're wrong, and it's satanic. It's satanic and it's Marxist.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And Free says the moral of the story is to decentralize and defund the federal government because nobody likes what they're doing. I mean, that's the goal. That's the obvious goal. But when they actually are the ones that regulate themselves, when they are the ones that would have to set their own term limits, when they are the ones that would have to defund themselves, it's never going to happen. Green-Eyed Bo said, I saw the video you're talking about, and it is extremely sick. And I found this video, James, and I want everybody to see this, okay? This is real. Now take a look. Look at this.
Freaking sickos.
Let me start this over. Look at this. This is in front of God and everybody. Okay, now that is a pride parade, you know? That is a pride parade. Why is that? Why is that what you should be doing during a pride parade?
Well, they're proud of their junk, I guess. You know, I mean, well, good for them. The problem is there's children involved here. When you bring my kids into it, that's where I draw the line. It's like the American education system is full of these literally insane gay. And look, I've said, we were talking about this segment within the Black community. It's also true. I believe that it's definitely a minority within the gay community that promotes this stuff. Now, having said that, you look at that staffer that was having anal sex in the Senate chamber, then you saw what came out about Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald has always represented the sane part of the gay community. You know, he's this great journalist and he's married and they have adopted kids. Well, then it turns out there's a video of him with a male prostitute smoking crack. What? I mean, the problem is degeneracy promotes degeneracy. When you do that first act, and look, I am not going to preach to anyone about morality. I have sinned. I'm the biggest sinner on the planet. I've done some really bad things in my life, Jack.
I think everybody probably has. Yeah.
But the problem is when you continue to promote degeneracy, it's this slippery slope. It just takes you further and further down. So if you're a guy and you decide to sleep with a man, well, then the next thing, well, maybe I'll sleep with 2 men and then maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And, you know, they've tried to normalize homosexuality. And the fact is, I think there's some issues there. Just with the same thing with transgenderism, it's a mental disease.
No, you're absolutely right. That's what it is. It is a mental illness. And that's why, I mean, personally, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I think that homosexuals and I think that bisexuals, I think that lesbians are all born the way they are. You know, and you can tell that they're born the way they are because a lot of them, well, I don't say a lot of them, but some of them don't want to be that way. Some of them hate the fact that they're gay. Some of them will kill themselves because they are gay.
Very
and it's
true.
not something they can control. Exactly. But transgenderism and things like that is a mental illness. They need psychological help for these kinds of things. And, you know, that's all I wanted to say before we go, James. It had to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And, you know, we have compassion and love for everybody, even our enemies, the Democrats, the communists, the CCP. I hope everybody has a wonderful day and has a great next week. And I think on that note, we will leave it. We appreciate you guys in the chat, by the way. That is so much fun. I'm James Clary. He's Jack Danger. It's Secret America. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secret America with Jack Danger and James Clary.